July 18, 2019, 10:00 a.m. in a three-story building in Fushimi, Kyoto. 70 staff members were busy at work. At 10:30 a.m., the door opened and a cart with 2 plastic cans entered. The cans were filled with 40 liters of gasoline. The man was Shinji Aoba, 41, from Saitama. Little time remained before the building turned to ash. Shinji Aoba was born in May 1978 in Saitama. After his parents divorced, he was reportedly raised under habitual abuse by his father. Welfare records and witness testimonies from that time showed repeated evidence of violence within the home. Ultimately, his unstable childhood experiences persisted emotionally into his adulthood, leading him to a life of crime. On June 20, 2012, Shinji Aoba was arrested for convenience store robbery, and the court sentenced him to 3 years and 6 months. Some traces of his life in Ibaraki were found during the probe. Little remained of his social ties or specific actions. And in January 2016, he completed his full sentence. Soon after, he began living at the Saitama Probation Center. During this time, he submitted his own work to the Kyoto Animation Award for novels. Thousands of manuscripts are submitted every year, with winning works considered for animation projects, earning it a high reputation among creators. His submitted work failed to win the award, and no records exist of his reaction right after. However, later psychiatric and trial records show this moment was the motive's core. They stole my novel's ideas, the starting point of his delusion. The rejection turned into a conviction that his work had been stolen. The gap between the results and his belief remained inseparable throughout the investigation and the trial. Yet during the legal process, no evidence of Kyoto Animation using it was ever found. During his probation after release, Shinji Aoba could not maintain a stable job. Probation records noted his struggles with social adaptation and repeated instances of unemployment. A later psychiatric evaluation report described his consistent mindset during this period. Whenever failure or misfortune struck, he blamed external factors and cast himself as a victim of persecution. This delusion and victim mentality soon hardened into rage toward Kyoto Animation, and he began moving to carry out the crime. Kyoto Animation was founded in Uji, Kyoto, in 1981. They did not follow standard industry practices. Instead of relying on outsourcing from planning to the final completion, internal staff handled everything directly. Staff were hired as full-time to ensure stability, allowing skilled artists to build expertise long-term. In 2019, the first studio was a 3-story building in Fushimi, Kyoto. The interior prioritized a creative environment. From the entrance, a staircase piercing the center spiraled up to the 3rd floor without obstruction, and each floor had no walls or partitions, maintained as an open workspace designed for instant communication among staff. Aided smooth creative activities, but during the fire, it connected the building into a giant chimney, becoming a fatal flaw. Between July 15 and 16, Shinji Aoba left Saitama and arrived in Kyoto. He immediately bought 2 gas cans and filled them. The total amount reached 40 liters, 20 per can. He then walked around Kyoto Animation Studio 1, checking the entrance and surrounding roads, and the direction of the stairs. Parts of his scouting route were captured on nearby security cameras. A 20L gasoline can weighs about 15 kg. So he needed a way to carry over 30 kg of liquid. On the 17th, the day before the crime, he bought a cart and ropes for transport, secured 2 cans onto the cart with the ropes, and did a final check at a nearby park. According to police seizure records, 6 knives were found inside his bag at the time. Authorities analyzed these as weapons, prepared in case his arson was thwarted. At 10:00 a.m. the next day, Shinji Aoba set off toward the studio with the cart. 2 gasoline cans were tied onto the cart with ropes. Without rushing or looking around, he moved at a steady pace toward his target. On the day of the incident, Studio 1 had no access control from the entrance to the workspace. and with deadlines and visitors overlapping, it was left open for easy passage. At 10:25 a.m., he arrived at the entrance with the cart, and as the cans were left open, gasoline vapor began to spread into the air. Some noticed a pungent smell, but it did not reach the inner workspace, and 5 minutes later, he stepped inside the open entrance. Immediately after entering the lobby, he began pouring gasoline onto the floor, shouting "Die!" He lit it with a lighter, and the fire began to spread instantly as the vaporized gasoline ignited. Flames erupted simultaneously throughout the first floor, instead of spreading slowly. The entire space released heat explosively. Oxygen began to be consumed rapidly. The first floor entrance was the only path for outside air or oxygen to enter. As fire broke out at that sole passage, internal oxygen was cut off from the outside and consumed rapidly during combustion, where high concentrations of toxic gas formed. From that moment, the building's interior turned into an unlivable environment. Gasoline does not burn as a liquid, it vaporizes and burns when mixed with air. Ignition occurs once vapor density hits a certain level, known as the LEL, which for gasoline is about 1.4%. If 40 L of gasoline spreads in a near-sealed space, the entire indoor air within a short time can fill with vapor far exceeding the LEL. If an ignition source is added now, it is not just a simple fire spreading from a spot, but rapid combustion occurring simultaneously throughout, leading to a vapor cloud explosion. According to Japan's fire service records, toxic gas and smoke reached the third floor in just 15 seconds. The spiral staircase, opened vertically to the third floor, triggered the stack effect immediately, where heated air from below rises upward and draws fresh air in from underneath, creating a powerful updraft in the vertical passage. At this point, stairwells, elevator shafts, and vertical pipe ducts act as paths that spread smoke and gas to the upper floors in an instant. To block such hazards, modern designs include fire stairs and doors, and horizontal smoke barriers on each floor, but standards in the 1990s were less strict, and Studio One met the existing codes with an open spiral staircase design. According to Professor Nishino at Kyoto University, smoke rose at 3-5 m/s within 30 seconds of ignition, faster than an adult sprinting up the stairs, before those on the third floor could even react. The smoke had already reached them. Ultimately, given the gasoline vapor explosion and the stack effect, the interior could not delay the toxic gas or provide enough time to escape. Experts in fire safety agree on this analysis. The smoke that reached the third floor left no physical time for escape. Staff on the third floor began to move upon noticing smoke. The exit to the roof was at the end of the stairs. Opening that door would lead out onto the roof, allowing escape via nearby buildings or ladders. The escape routes to avoid flames inside the building were virtually only toward the roof, besides the first floor. Over 20 people rushed to the stairs leading to the roof. Meanwhile, high-temperature toxic gas rising up began to accumulate under the third-floor ceiling, and smoke in the stairwell fast approached lethal levels. Those who reached the roof door to survive desperately tried to open it, but due to the toxic gas under the ceiling, internal pressure had increased, with over 20 people crowded in the stairwell. Visibility was already almost entirely blocked. The door opened by pulling inward, but as the crowd rushed toward it, counter-pressure made it nearly impossible to open. The very force used to survive trapped them instead, preventing escape. According to Kyoto police autopsy records, in the stairwell about 2 m from the roof door, many victims were found huddled together. The cause of death was asphyxiation by toxic gas, since fresh air and safety were just beyond the door. This tragic news brought immense shock to many. While escape was blocked on the stairs to the roof, some people made it out through third-floor windows, hanging onto window frames, jumping down, or trying to move to nearby structures. These scenes were reportedly witnessed from the ground. However, with internal oxygen already depleted and flammable gases accumulated, the moment outside air rushed in through the window, flames erupted explosively through that opening. It was the so-called backdraft. As windows opened, they became paths for pouring flames. At 10:30 a.m., the fire following the blast engulfed the entire building. Aoba Shinji, running from the flames, tried to flee, while some staff members followed in pursuit. 5 minutes later, he was found 100 m away in front of a house. Unable to move further due to severe leg burns, he lay collapsed on the ground. His entire body bore widespread burns from the gasoline he had scattered. Police arrived and secured him while controlling the scene. Lying on the ground, gasping for air, he repeated the same words to the police. Records show he stated, "They stole my novel." Black smoke still billowed from Studio 1 behind him. Fire trucks arrived within minutes of the start. The fire was out by 3:19 p.m., 5 hours later. The three-story building was gutted. Part of the concrete outer walls remained, with ash and melted metal structures inside. According to the fire department's final report, the incident left 36 dead and 33 injured. And Kyoto police began identifying the victims to officially release all 36 names, ages, and roles. It took 26 days, from August 2 to 27, 2019. Those were in their 20s to 40s. Animation, color design, background art, filming, editing, they were at their desks working that morning. Among those names, active since the 1970s, working on Grave of the Fireflies and Akira, was Kigami Yoshiji, who helped shape the animation system. Takemoto Yasuhiro, director of Harui and Lucky Star. Nishio Futoshi, character designer for Hyoga and Free, and Aita Shoko, who designed characters for Euphonium, were all included in the list, as they were key staff in Japanese TV animation. According to National Police Agency statistics, since the 2001 Shinjuku Kabukicho building fire, it is recorded as the single arson attack, with the second highest number of victims in modern Japan.
死亡した部隊隊員全員がですね、一人でも多くの命を救うということで懸命に活動をいたしましたけれども、結果的に34人の方がお亡くなりになったということは大変残念に感じております。昼間の火災であれだけの規模で燃焼しているということが、私の経験からも今までないと、今回いろいろ報道されている中でやはりやりきれないというのは正直ございます。それぞれ隊員が何とかならないというところですけれども、そこができなかったのは私も含めて全て思っているわけです。
2 days after the incident, Kyoto Animation announced that global donations had exceeded 3.3 billion yen. Donations continued to pour in afterward, with the total reaching over 4 billion yen. Beyond Japan, US animation distributor Sentai Filmworks led a fundraising campaign, drawing donations from the US, Europe, and Asia. Kyoto Animation stated that these funds would support victims and restore production. The culprit, Aoba Shinji, was in critical condition with 90% burns. On July 26, a cultured skin autograft was performed in Osaka. A small sample of the patient's skin cells was taken, grown in large quantities to cover the burned areas. At the time, transplants on such a scale were rare within Japan, especially without using any donor skin tissue, using only cultured and artificial skin to save a severe burn patient was known as a rare case worldwide. This unusual measure was taken so the culprit could testify in court about his actions, decided by investigators and medical staff.
で、あと少なくとも4回は手術をします。分かった？頑張れる？頑張れます。はい、頑張るね。
In April 2020, demolition of Studio 1 was completed. It took about 9 months after the incident over what should be left in its place. Kyoto City, Kyoto Animation, and families began talks, as formal discussions on a memorial began. The site remained empty on Sep 5, 2023. 4 years and 1 month after the incident, the first trial was held at the Kyoto District Court. Aoba Shinji admitted to the prosecution's charges, yet held on to 2 claims. I didn't think so many would die, and he never withdrew his claim of stolen novels. On January 25, 2024, the Kyoto District Court sentenced Aoba Shinji to death. The court recognized his full criminal responsibility and the intentional, planned nature of the killings. His claims of victimization and stolen novels were not accepted as grounds for reduced sentence. The basis for the verdict converged on a single point: months of preparation and the Kyoto site inspection, and the purchase of gas, carts, ropes, and knives proved that the crime was not accidental. Choosing the first floor entrance, the main air source, as the starting point of the fire was seen as a planned act to block escape routes. Right after the verdict, sobbing filled the courtroom. On February 7, 2024, as the defense filed an appeal, the case was moved to the Osaka High Court. However, in January the following year, the defense voluntarily withdrew the appeal, accepted as the defendant's own decision. The Osaka High Court ruled the withdrawal valid, and Aoba Shinji's death sentence was finalized. Since the incident, the Japanese government revised the Fire Service Act for purchasing gas in cans, mandating ID checks and records of the purpose of use. In July 2024, a 5th anniversary memorial was held. Messages from families were shared on Kyoto Animation channel, and new works by the surviving staff have been released. Despite the massive damage from the fire, certain concrete sections of the 3rd floor server room avoided direct contact with the flames, and data was found preserved in some storage units. Inside were original drawings and scenes in progress, including color files from just before 10:30 a.m. on July 18. Leaving behind part of the staff's final work records, recovered data and existing production materials were reused in Kyoto Animation's later works, and projects bearing the traces of the staff were eventually completed and released. Violet Evergarden, Eternity, and the Auto Memory Doll was already in the final stages of production, allowing it to be released as scheduled. Violet Evergarden, the movie, nearly cancelled, was continued by the remaining staff and materials, and was finally completed. On the memorial at the Studio 1 site, the names of the 36 victims were engraved.